The warehouse is open. Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 50, an anniversary spectacular unlike any other. No, Nikki Glazer won't be hosting, but I will. Today we got Stu, we got Jim, we got Drew, we got Rob, we got the OGs. We brought to you today the VP of MeiGray Authenticated, the VP of the NBA program, the VP of sales, and the senior director for MeiGray Vintage. Plus, we have breaking news. We may as well start with that. Mr. Oxenhorn, always good to see you. Can you tell me, please, what's going on July the 12th at Raritan Valley Community College, sir?
Yeah, July 12th is going to be the date of our next expo for 2025.
Bingo. We'll start off with that. 7/12, circle your calendars, postpone your vacations, and get the plans ready, because it's always a great time. Gentlemen, as we celebrate episode 50 of Tales from the Warehouse, we brought aboard the OGs to talk a little bit more about what your first days were like at MeiGray, whether it was an initial role, whether it was an initial hazing, whether it was initial welcoming into the MeiGray family. Stu, let's start with you. Today, Senior Director, MeiGray Vintage. What was it like in your earliest days of MeiGray?
Well, definitely a lot less coworkers. Rob was there at the time. And for the most part, it was, for me at least, it was mostly hockey, where today we've, especially in authentication, of basically expanded into all four sports even more. We've done quite a few soccer jerseys, F1 race suits, and the like. But back in the early days, it was really just hockey.
Mr. Montague, over to you. How long have you been, and what were your first days like?
I've been here full-time for 12 years, I think. And then I had a couple of years earlier than that. I was just doing some part-time stuff here, doing like a puck program for the Rangers and Flyers. That was like 2007 and 8, Stu, I think. Something. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yep. 2008.
But it blossomed. Rob, don't let the gray hair and the gray beard fool you. You've only been there like for a couple of weeks now. But
yeah,
what were your early days like, Mr. Gross?
End of May, it'll be 23 years. I think I'm the longest tenured. But yeah, first day, there were not many people. Stu was there. It's the first day I ever met Stu. We actually had lunch that day. Barry bought us lunch for my first day.
And hasn't bought lunch, right?
Not
the
since.
last time we had lunch. That's correct. Yes. So it's been, it's definitely a different place. We've moved, for everybody who remembers Suite C, that's where we started. And now we're in Suite F, a lot bigger space. And, yeah, as Stu had mentioned, we do a lot more different things now. So it's going well.
Drew, welcome back, sir. Good to see you. Talk to me a little bit about your first experience, exposure.
My first start was January 2007, and I remember specifically what I was working on. I was brought in to help out with photography, which was getting a whole lot of sets, and things were starting to back up. And specifically, it was the Garth Brooks Teammates for Kids charity auction, which was it was a jersey from every player in the league. So it was under the program umbrella. Correct me if I'm not mistaken, Rob, you would remember this. It was every player, whether we worked with the team or not, every player's jersey was under this program. And my first job was photographing them all. So like day 1, 2, 3, I saw literally every jersey in the league.
Drew, I'll keep this with you. You don't know what it's going to be like when you start a new job in any workplace. Did you feel the vibe? Did you feel a good, I'm going to use this word 16 more times as I ask everybody the same question over and over, but did you feel a work chemistry like, I'm going to like it here?
Oh yeah, there was it's really funny. I remember there being like a distinct smell, not in a bad way, just like all the, it just smells like clean hockey jerseys in the back. And it's, we're all hockey nuts. So you're back there, and I'm pretty sure for the first half of the first day, I was like, just go look around and, enjoy, soak it all in, be a kid in the candy store, which it is. I mean, yeah, you're around just the coolest stuff at all times. So yeah, it's pretty easy to get carried away and just soak it all in. You wander, and there's still stuff that comes in on consignment. Maybe you don't realize it till like, oh man, this is a really cool piece. Like, there's so much cool stuff here.
Talking to the OGs for Volume 50 from Tales from the Warehouse as we celebrate Tales from the Warehouse and also make the big announcement of July the 12th, the upcoming MeiGray Expo to be held at the Raritan Valley Community College. Stu, I didn't have smell on my bingo card, but do you remember the smell? Was it the smell of success? Was it the smell of chemistry during your first few days?
Let's not go the first few days. Let's go one of my first trips.
Oh, boy.
I can remember going to Toronto for the Hall of Fame game, and I picked up both the Toronto jerseys and the Tampa Bay Lightning jerseys. And, right after the game, still wet, drag them through the streets of Toronto to my hotel room, and made the mistake of just I needed to dry them because I knew the bags would be too heavy to get through the airport. They'd be over the 50-pound limit. So I tried airing them out that night in the hotel room, and that reeked. And sure enough, the next day, I think I had one bag that was like 55 pounds, and the other one was like 40. And I'm there, just throwing the other jerseys into the other bag, trying to even them out so I could get through.
How did you do this? Did you use the in-room hair dryer? Did you seek out housekeeping? Did you seek out an end of the hallway open door where you're like, oh, wow, there's laundry in here and I'm going to be the guy to use it?
No, I was just hang them up all over the place. Just lay them out all over the room.
Yeah, definitely nothing that smart or ingenuous. We usually just drape them over the bathroom and
exactly.
The poor housekeeping that comes in after we leave with wet hockey jerseys. I feel kind of bad for them.
Yeah, we've all seen the little clothesline in the shower, basically, that you stretch from one end of the shower to the other, and you're like, okay, I spilled something on myself at dinner on a business trip, and I'm going to have to run cold water and dry it out there. Nope. Now they're soaked. They're the hanging place of soaked hockey jerseys. Yeah. Rob, tell me about your vibe. Was it of warmth when you're the senior member. What was it like for you saying hello to everybody and sort of being at the center of that chemistry?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. I came from a corporate environment, so walking through the warehouse for the first time, I'm basically just, turning around in circles at the thousands of jerseys. And back then we had the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So there were Eagles helmets and Eagles jerseys. And I'm a big Eagles fan, Super Bowl champs there, by the way, I'll throw that in. And that was just, a really neat, a really neat environment. And I figured, I could get used to this coming in here every day. So that would be a lot of fun. And it's still fun all these years later.
Mr. Montague, to you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit the same. When I got there, I was stationed between Stu and Rob. I'd known Rob only from going to expos and stuff. So, I went into a place already familiar with the people that work there. So it's not like when you said you go start a job somewhere and everybody's brand new. You carry, Barbara, everybody, met everybody already. So it wasn't Joe Manley started at the same time I did too. Mm-hmm. So I knew him prior. So it was just kind of like, okay, I know everybody now. It was just a matter of getting down the day-to-day, what we're going to do working, right? And it was a job where you go into and you're fairly confident going in because you've been dealing in this hobby at this point when I started for 15 years before I started here. So, with that, it's not like whenever you get out of college and start a job, you have no idea what to expect. Just like Rob, I came from other environments prior. So it was just a matter of figuring out the dynamics of how my day-to-day was going to go.
Sure. And you, again, because of the neutral zone, you had the benefit of being in the hobby, in the business. So the connections were already made. And like you said, it was a transition made a little bit easier. Whereas, for Rob, it's like, all right, I'm here. Who else is joining me? Stu comes into the building. Drew comes into the building a little bit later on. But the notion of the chemistry, you guys are part of something that has been around for quite a while. It does speak to Barry. It speaks to the sort of family, and I'll get to the family a little bit later on, sort of the family dynamic. But it speaks, that there is a chemistry there. You guys have all worked in other places where maybe you don't get along with all of your teammates, and it still works, but it certainly helps when everybody gets along and there's, everybody's rowing at the same, and there's the love of the hobby. There's a lot that goes into creating this chemistry. Stu, I'll go over to you for that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, even from the early days, we always had each other's backs. I mean, especially, with Carrie and Barb and Jason and Drew and Rob. I mean, we got along really well, and as the years went on, bringing aboard like Joe and Jim, we knew them already, but, they came on board. And then as we get further into it, bringing in the newer guys like we have today, I think those guys really, they're a lot younger, but we still get along. We still, it's still a pretty good, tight-knit group in that regard of, being friends, doing things outside of MeiGray here and there. So it's definitely been an enjoyable part of the job.
Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 50, MeiGray, your home for so many things, including teams in the NHL like the Flyers, the Caps, the Devils, the Blue Jackets, the Preds, and the Wild. NBA at a minimum, Charlotte, the Warriors, the Clips, the Lakers. This is like an episode of The Love Boat with Stu and Jim and Drew and Rob all joining me. This is my Love Boat dream scenario. I just wish we had Isaac here. At any rate, it's Volume 50, talking about sort of the OG and the development of Drew. Before we started recording, and I'm glad you brought props and brought stuff to sort of talk about your history, because your history mirrors a lot of people's experiences from inside of the warehouse. You brought a box of credentials, and they're credentials for events, and we'll get to specifics, but just a lot of people's workplaces don't generate the memories that you guys have had exposure to. So I'll start with this simple question. Is there a Drew coolest experience that you've had working a live event?
Well,
working for MeiGray?
You touched on it a little bit. So here, I think everyone kind of in the hobby working here, we all have one thing in common. That's we like stuff, obviously. The stuff's cool. The memorabilia is the cool. So when I started, I was like, what about if I was getting like jersey from each event I worked? And then real quick, I was like, budget probably isn't conducive to that. So I've kept one thing from every event that I've done. And here's the box. This is my box of credentials from all the events I've done at MeiGray. We got the Devils Stadium Series when they played the Flyers at MetLife. We got the All-Star Game in Nashville. We got the Winter Classic in Dallas, the Shea Stadium Project, Flyer games, Devil regular season credential. What do we got here? We got Minnesota Stadium Series. We got Martin Brodor's retirement night. Let's see. Keep going. We got the All-Star Game in Columbus. Stu was there. We had a great time. Got to hang out with Stu in Columbus. What's not to like? We had a Boston Bruins Winter Classic. So they're all in here. This is my one thing that that you've done a lot. We got Hall of Fame game, AHL All-Star game. So I keep them all. It's the one thing I keep. It's my box of MeiGray memories, I guess. So it's fun to go back and look through them. But some of them do a really nice job, and some of them even spelled my name right. So we're those ones always stand out to me when I get them. I'm like, oh wow, you didn't add 7 letters. So not that I need any added.
Drew, I always have to ask, because I too, and I apologize because I mean this with the utmost respect, I too struggle because I always ask for your help in pronouncing your last name. When you get to these events, like you said, the misspells happen, but you're like, yeah, hi, I'm Drew with MeiGray, and they pick it up and they go, oh, Mr. William.
Yeah,
nice
I
to
usually
see
just
you.
say the longest one in there, and I usually get it when I just say the longest one in there. So that seems to be my go-to.
There's way too many consonants in that name.
Yeah, there's numbers in it sometimes too.
You just change an E for a 3, or, like Megan or whatever the murdering, torturing robot was. At any rate, it's Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 50. Stu, you've been there a minute. Coolest live event? I mean, you mentioned it, the story about soaked sweaters through the streets of Toronto. That's a winner. And the stench. I mean, I remember back in my days of covering the Capitals, there was a player named Trent Whitfield. God bless him. Had the stinkiest gear you'd never want to stand next to. And I'm just part of a bunch of people holding up a microphone, and I'm like, oh God, you took off your gloves and you should have not taken off your gloves. So I know the stench. I know the vile nature of professional hockey players' equipment. Any other cool story from working a live event that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll go back to Toronto. we had a collector that wanted to auction a jersey, and I guess the player had worn 2 in the game, and he wanted the other one, which we had donated to the Hockey Hall of Fame. It had more wear, so he asked us if we could swap it out. We said we would. We, doesn't hurt to ask, and we asked Phil Pritchard, and he was more than happy to do it. So it was after another Hall of Fame game. We walked over to the Hall of Fame, opened the display case, swapped the jerseys out, and then went rummaging around the hall. And that was one of the better nights, just literally going through the hall's archives before they moved to the resource center where they are now, just going through jerseys, just, pulling things out of, every little crack in the basement of the Hall of Fame. And, make one turn and there's the Stanley Cup sitting on top of a file cabinet. The good part, and this is why I love Canada, is when they asked us if we wanted anything to drink, and a couple people with us didn't drink, they said that they just asked for water, and they didn't have that. All they had was beer. So,
Rob, how about you, my friend?
Oh, there's been a lot. We've gotten to do a lot of neat things that people don't really get a chance to do, and we're grateful for that. Being in the Winter Classics, for me, a couple come to mind, and it's the Flyers in Boston, at Fenway Park.
Fenway, sure.
We were getting set up in the clubhouse and realizing how tiny their clubhouse is. I don't know how the Red Sox use that. It was crazy. And then going outside and looking on the field and seeing the Green Monster was unbelievable. And then, doing the same thing, doing the Winter Classic with the Flyers against the Rangers at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, where they stuck us in a closet. Stu, I think you remember that. We did that.
It was the Ball Boys or the Bat Boys locker room.
We stayed in there pretty much the entire game, and we made the mistake of going out there during one of the stoppages, and unexpectedly saw Mr. Yager's backside, which was a little more than we needed to see. Sure. So we quickly turned around and let's go back the other way and get back into the ball boy room, because but a lot of fun things like that that we've done over the years for sure.
Jim, how about you, sir? Something that sticks out aside from a full moon from '68.
Well, I did a couple of Winter Classics and stuff like these guys, but probably we used to do the card shop in Toronto, and where our table was set up, directly across from us was the ice cream guy. You had those they're called the walkaway sundaes with the cone with the ice cream on top of the chocolate nuts. So we'd have like about 10 of those a freaking day. So that was one of the things I really remember about doing those Toronto Expos. We just happened to be set up right across from that guy.
Driving there. It was brutal.
That's something different than the other. I could have just said everything else that all the other guys do, but that's one thing I definitely remember.
We've seen a lot of Hall of Fame caliber pieces, but Jim got ice cream, so, great.
Jim got ice cream, and one of the other booths next to us sold wrestling magazines. Jim, you remember those?
Yeah. Got ourselves some old wrestling magazine.
And you mentioned, Rob, I believe it was you who said, the rides from here to there, that probably in and of itself has, and we can try to keep it as appropriate as possible. That may be the gateway into some funny road stories. And again, where you guys are at an event and trying not to photobomb Getty images, but you're there in the corner during a skate. You're like, there I am again. Anything like that through the years stick out, boys, as far as humor? We'll keep.
Should I take this one, Stuart? Do you want to tell the story? I mean, it's
you can do it.
Well, I've got one after you, but go ahead.
So I still feel a little bad about it. Stu and myself did a show. It was Mike Hogan's show up in Boston, and we were setting up a display. And I don't even think I was 21 at the time, so this has nothing to do with alcohol. I know that's where a lot of heads are going to go. That morning of the show, I was sick, like sweating, fever, chills. I was I don't know what it was, but I had food poisoning, and I was down for the count. We had to be out of our room. I think I slept under the table at the show. Like I was
all day.
I was sick till it came time to pack up. we packed up, and we did good up until we got back in, I think, New Jersey, and I vomited all in Stu's door. And I was sleeping, and then all of a sudden wake up, and it was, sorry about that one, Stu. It was not pretty. The smell, speaking of smells, I'm sure the smell there lasted for a while, but it was just instant. And I wish there was a good story to go with it. I wish it was, we went out drinking the night before, and the was right there, and I was in the lock. No, I think I just had like bad pizza, and then Stu's door had the bad pizza the next day.
You know what? That sounds a little bit like one of the trips we took to Toronto. Drew didn't really like driving too terribly much, so it pretty much was Jim, Barb, and I that did that entire up and back. And all I remember is Drew in the back of the van on top of the hockey bags, sound asleep. And we're like, how does he get to sleep for like 12 straight hours? And the rest of us are driving. I can barely keep my eyes open. So looks like that's
I can't remember being mad at him for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when I woke up, I said I didn't sleep that great. And the looks I got from the people who didn't sleep at all were...
You're lucky we didn't kick you out of the van while it was moving.
Tremendous. Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 50. It's Jim, it's Stu, it's Drew, it's Rob, it's me, it's you. We appreciate the stories as we take a look back and a look ahead. By the way, looking ahead to July 12th, Raritan Valley Community College. The date is officially announced for the upcoming MeiGray Expo. We will see you there. As we continue this chat with these are the people in your neighborhood. There's your Sesame Street reference for the day, folks. A lot of great hockey people through the years at wherever. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Expos in a second, but just through the events or through contact. Drew, is there somebody either most famous or famous enough but really made an impression on you in your day-to-day MeiGray dealings? And if not Drew, then maybe somebody else. You're like, you know what? There was this one time I get to meet so-and-so in the office or at a Winter Classic or at an All-Star game. And to this day, it still resonates. Drew, start with you.
Sure. So it's always very professional with, when we're in the locker room, we have a job to do. So we're not there to interact with the players. So I've been in the locker rooms when some of the all-time GOATs are there. But one that stood out to me, the 2018 finals between Vegas and Washington, I rode in an elevator with Travis Barker, and you guys, some of the other guys on this call probably don't even know who that is. But Scott, you're young and hip. You probably know exactly.
182.
Yep. Yeah. So that was cool. As I grew up a Blink-182 fan, so I was like, oh, hey, I know you. But that's, that was cool. I like that one.
That's really cool. Yeah. Stu, how about you? Did you ride in the elevator with Lawrence Welk, or I don't want to,
We saw Babe Ruth play live.
Yeah, there you go.
Anybody,
there's a lot.
Stu, I'm sure that you shared a story ago when we talked about Flyers collections and whether it's Dave Schultz or what have you, but outside of the collection in the day-to-day. And I know, and Drew, you bring up a very, very key point, whether you're in the media, whether you're doing something like this, it's always, we're not here to get autographs. I whenever I went into a locker room and Lindy Ruff dressed me down because I was in somebody else's locker room covering a press conference that was going on at the same time as his. And he's like, well, where were you 5 minutes ago? I'm only going to repeat the same answer. I still thought that was cool. And I still tell my kids that story today. Like, that guy once dressed me down because I was doing my job in another locker room, but it resonates. There's, you come into contact with some really cool people. Stu, yours.
I guess early on, we did a thing in Hartford, for the Whalers. It was like an anniversary something for the Whalers. It was, at UConn in their football stadium there. And, Mark and, Gordie Howe were there. So that was kind of cool. We had a trio of their jerseys and they came over and took photos, and actually have a photo of Gordie elbowing Pucky the Whale. That was kind of fun. And then a little more personal, but the Flyers, when they did their 50th anniversary, again, it's just staying professional, just being quiet. But Joe and I were in the locker room with those guys, every great Flyer that ever played, basically. Just stuck in the locker room with them for probably an hour because they stuck him in the auxiliary locker room and all their bags and everything on the floor. We couldn't get out of there. So just hanging out, listening to what was going on.
Right.
Definitely pretty cool.
you go to those and you just appreciate, and you become the quiet sponge in the corner. You're like, I'm just going to let this sink in because I can't believe I'm in a room with these people from the Cup years or
Exactly.
whomever. Rob, how about you? I see you smiling like the butcher's dog. Rest in peace, Mike Lang.
Yeah, we had a nice one. Stu and I were actually working a Flyers game for Mark Howe night. Stu, you might remember this. Speaking of your Gordy
Yeah.
situation,
I've heard about it many times. Thank you.
yeah. Luckily, Stu at his event was able to get a picture with Gordy. Unfortunately, this night I was not able to get a picture with Gordy. There's professionalism, and then there's meeting Mr. Hockey. So there was no one around at our table. It was during play, so there were very few people. And Marty and Gordy walked by, and Stu had his camera. Stu always has his camera, so I was able to go in front of our display and shake the hand of Mr. Hockey, and I'm looking for Stu, and Stu's just wandering on the concourse taking pictures of nothing, and I to this day I've never let him forget it. And actually, I'm a little annoyed right now. I'm getting a little worked up, to be honest with you. Had my opportunity for a picture with Gordy, and Stu's fault that I didn't.
Mr. Montague, we'll close this bit of the segment with you. Being that you brought up, Sundays from a Toronto show, perhaps you met the guy from Carvel, or had a picture with Fudgy the Whale, or what was your famous exposure?
I think for me it would have been Drew and I did the Winter Classic at Gillette Stadium, and they set us up right outside the alumni locker room. That's where we were. And again, you're not supposed to talk to anybody. You're just doing your thing. And all the alumni went out to have their game, and we're kind of standing there. I'm just standing there, and all of a sudden, out of the alumni locker room comes Stan Jonathan. Now, if you're a Bruins guy, or you're my age, or a Bruins guy, he holds some clout in your mind, And I'm like, holy crap, it's Stan Jonathan, So then he looks over at me, I look over at him, and just go, hey, Stan, how you doing? And he came over, we just had a quick little chit chat about nothing, just about the game or whatever. And it was just a really cool moment. I totally remember.
It's Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 50, the untold history of MeiGray, and sort of behind the scenes is being told and shared by Stu and Drew and Jim and Rob, and we greatly appreciate it. Again, MeiGray.com, your home for the Wild and the Preds and the Blue Jackets and the Devils and the Caps and the Flyers, and on the NBA side, not tons and not limited to the Hornets and the Warriors and the Lakers and the Clippers. And with this summertime coming up, make your plans now. July 12th, the MeiGray Expo will be upon you, and what a weekend it is of community, of sweaters, of amazing displays. Raritan Valley Community College, once again, the site. Stu, I'll start with you because you've been a part of so many Friday night setups and you've shared some of those stories with us. Is there a most memorable MeiGray Expo story in the Oxenhorn file?
Wow, there's a lot. There was so much great stuff that came through there, from collectors to the Hall of Fame to, but I'll go back, and I think, Scott, you may have even told this story. But we did for a couple of years. Rafi Bass was a collector who had cancer, and we did a Bass Open golf tournament for 3 years. And Phil Pritchard from the Hall was at one of them, and we were sitting around, and, some guy, one of the collectors, I don't remember who, said, that guy looks exactly like the guy that brings the cup on the ice. And, it was just a good, fun moment. And that's what, those expos were about. And, even the night before getting together, it's just have a, little bit of fun, talk some stories. And that's what the expo continues to be, is just, collectors getting together.
And sharing love of the fabric. And there's guest speakers through the years. Drew, do you have a favorite guest speaker and or a story from an expo you'd like to share?
I'm going to be biased. I mean, my favorite too, Mr. Devil Ken Danico. He always tells great stories. And if you're a Devils fan, maybe you've heard some of them before, but like when he's in the room telling the stories, they're great. He's always tremendous. And then from a personal standpoint, he was one of my favorite players. 2003 Game 7 Stanley Cup winning goal scorer Mike Rupp was in the room. Who I also he's terrific live. He's on. I think he's still on the NHL Network, and he he just tells great stories. And as a Devils fan, seeing these guys who, I rooted for so long, and then having them in the same room with us on a professional level, they're so accommodating. They're such nice guys, and they just tell great stories.
Rob, how about you? A favorite speaker through the years?
I remember Chico Resch was just so personable. I don't think anybody that's ever listened to him or met him has had a bad thing to say about him. I think he was a great guest. I think he really resonated with everybody, answered every question, signed every autograph for our guests. Could not have been nicer. No time constraints, was just so giving and willing to tell every story. And he was just fantastic, to be honest.
Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 50, talking to some of the OGs from the world of MeiGray, with telling some of their own untold stories. And maybe you'll have been or will be lucky enough to ask some more questions at the upcoming Expo, July 12th, Raritan Valley Community College. Jim, any funny stories, any speaker that sort of sticks out through the year? And I'm sure that there is funny, setup, we forgot this, or setup, we thought we had everything, and then all of a sudden we're running out to get zip ties, or we forgot to pick the guest up from the airport, or something like that. Maybe it was less funny, more nerve-wracking. Mr. Montague,
well, I can give you a funny, embarrassing, but it's not really Expo related, but it is MeiGray related.
Please.
And, back when I first started, I was doing just a puck program for the Rangers and the Flyers. So when you're doing those programs, you're dealing with the off-ice officials, and you get to know them because you meet them after the game, and you get the pucks, and you talk to them before the game to make sure everybody's on board before, because we had just kind of started that back then. So we're just making sure everybody was on board with what we were doing. You got to know them. You'd see them in the room prior to the game where everybody's having dinner, and so you just got to know everybody. So I was on a decent speaking basis with the gentleman Bernie, who up in New York. And I just happened to do like back-to-back games. So where we were set up for the Flyers was right near the replay booth. So I was at the Flyer game one night. And so the next night I went and to the Ranger game, and I see Bernie. He goes, "Hey, I saw you on TV last night." I go, "Yeah?" He goes, "Yeah, you were stuffing your face with popcorn." So you never know when the camera's going to be on you, people. So, just be careful.
From Sundays to popcorn, huh, Jerry?
Yes. It's a theme MeiGray podcast for me today.
I'm sensing a theme, and I'm actually here for it. Stu, Drew, Rob, anything funny stick out from the decades of doing the MeiGray Expos? I'm sure there's got to be a little something.
Funny from the Expos.
I'll give you one. It's really not funny to me, but it was funny for Joe. We used to borrow a van from next door here. And we get over to the college, and there were wasps nesting in the side view mirror.
Oh my God.
And me, tough guy, went over to Walmart, got some wasp spray, and went to take them out very confidently. So I sprayed the mirror, and several of them came right at me, stung me twice in the face. I went down, and all Joe remembers, and Joe loves this, is he just sees me go down, and then he hears the can of wasp spray just rolling down the parking lot there. Glasses went flying, as I was just lying on the ground.
That's great.
But you were sewn up, Stu. Did you make the Expo that week?
I made the Expo, didn't miss a minute.
See, you're a hockey player. That's basically what it is. I'm sorry that we're laughing, but yeah, that's terrible. It's episode 50, volume 50, Tales from the Warehouse. Again, Expo upcoming July 12th. Boys, before we get on out of here today, and thank everybody for their awesome stories and sharing, can you narrow it down to one? And you may have already shared this, but when I ask you guys to sort of pick the coolest item or the most interesting item that you've had the great fortune of working on throughout your time at MeiGray, maybe it's interesting to a lot of people, or you're like, not a lot of people are going to like this, but it's the coolest thing I've ever seen, and here's why. Drew, is there something that sort of sticks out from your time inside the warehouse?
Yeah, you said narrow it down to one, and it without hesitation,
Okay.
it's Martin Brodeur's 2003 Stanley Cup lifting winning game worn jersey. The thing, he didn't take it off after, well, let me rewind. He wore it for all home games in the Stanley Cup Finals, wanted to continue wearing that jersey in Game 7 when the rest of the team switches into a new jersey for the players to keep. Brodeur, being superstitious, didn't want to change jerseys, wears the jersey that the customer pre-ordered in Game 7 of the 2003 Finals. They win the game. He's celebrating afterwards. MeiGray gets a thing. We had it here recently on consignment within the last 2 years, I believe. The thing is stained with champagne and cigar smoke. It's filthy, and it's absolutely wonderful.
That's talk about stench, but it's the stench of victory. I'm okay with that. Rob, how about you, sir?
I think when we had the home and road Indianapolis Racers Gretzky pre-Edmonton Oilers jerseys, they were fantastic. To be able to see that before he was, really the guy. Those two jerseys stand out. I'll throw one more in, and also the mask that the Hall of Fame brought down for Jimmy Craig that he wore in the 1980 Olympics, Miracle on Ice. Got to, put that in front of my face, and that's a pretty neat thing.
Iconic pieces for sure.
Absolutely.
Jimmy, do you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many awesome ones. Being an authentication, probably seen a bunch of other stuff that some of these other guys haven't just because it's coming through our department. But probably I'm going to go recently, might say recently, the last couple of years, and Isaiah Thomas's full uniform for when Indiana won the national championship.
Wow.
It was matched to him cutting down the net. That was a fantastic piece.
insane.
And I'm not even an Isaiah Thomas guy. Just
Sure.
the piece in general was just, I don't know, it just seems so unique to me. It was really cool.
Stu, to you?
Yeah, it was pretty recent as well, but it was Babe Ruth's called shot. So that for me, just the authentication work on it, what we had to do, all the work that went into it, and just the iconic nature of it puts that right at the top.
Boys, we'll do rapid fire for a couple quick ones. Has the dynamic changed sort of MeiGray's secret sauce, or you're proud to say that it's just sort of adapted with the times? Stu, I'll keep it right with you.
I think we've pretty much adapted with the times. Things have changed here a lot in that, one, we've grown, and there's a lot of other coworkers here, and just the whole sports landscape changed to, involve basketball and other sports. But it's still growing. I mean, after COVID, there was a big boom, and I think it definitely plateaued a little, but we're still seeing growth. I think just now, we're almost a 4, even 5 sport company, and it's still growing.
Rob, how about for you?
Yeah, I think it's. I think we've definitely adapted with the times. It's not as basic as it was. The amount of, let's be honest, the amount of money in the hobby just continues to grow as we see these auction pieces just continue to hit new records, and to be a part of that on the authentication side, it's exciting. So it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us researching and trying to do best authentication work we can. And it's still a really neat hobby and a lot of fun.
Jim, how about for you? Secret sauce still the same? Mission statement still the same? It's still, hey, we're here for transparency. We're here for trust. We're here to take care of the clients.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to echo what those guys said. Adaption is definitely, I don't even know if it's adaption as much as changing with the way the industry and hobby has changed and what collectors are looking for, what they demand, what they're looking for now, what they're wanting a piece and what they're willing to spend on, and the amount of, when Rob was talking about authentication, the level of proof one is looking for versus 20 years ago is completely different. And, there are still differences in the collector basis from hockey to basketball to baseball in terms of what it is that collector is looking for, or what motivates them to buy and what turns them off from buying. I think we've had this discussion before, like the whole autograph thing. Hockey guys are still like, no, basketballs and guys don't really seem to care that much. So, it's about us also, and that adaption is being able to, us as authenticators and as providing services to the customer is understanding what it is that they're looking for.
Drew,
So
you're
I think we've
entrenched
done
with
that pretty well.
No, I appreciate it. Drew, you're entrenched with the Devils. You're also the VP of sales. Actually, a two-parter. Has the general public gotten nicer, perhaps easier to deal with because they're knowing more these days? And I'm not saying, no, throw the general public under the bus, Scott. That's no, but just sort of knowledge is power. And I think it's become more of it's become more of an intelligent conversation from us to you.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of it as to what has made all of our jobs easier. That once upon a time, game worn jerseys. What do you mean? Oh, I have jerseys. I wear a jersey to a game. Where now, Stu mentioned at the Babe Ruth, like national news is covering these things. And whether you see them on a TV show like Pawn Stars, or like they have sports memorabilia in there. And, the talk show hosts like talk about these things in the news, like the Babe Ruth. So friends of mine who aren't in the industry, it would come up organically. Like, did you guys see that Babe Ruth jersey that sold? And I'm like, yeah, did you guys see who authenticated that Babe Ruth jersey you sold? So it's like, as the general public just learns about this super niche industry, a couple years ago, one of the famous stories was somebody pretended to be a reporter, snuck into the Patriots locker room after Brady won Super Bowl and stole the jersey. And that story got a lot of news coverage. And that was kind of like my reference point. It was like, oh, hey, that jersey that guy stole? That's what I do. Except, we don't really sell them. We have a contract with the teams and, you're not going to go to jail for owning it. But as the general public learns about this in game-worn jerseys and find out that this is a thing I can own, it's great. It promotes growth. And like you said, knowledge is power.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for the time today. The past has been a blast. The future looks very, very bright. We're glad that you have all been a part of our past and will continue to be a part of our future. Stu, Jim, Rob, Drew, the Senior Director of MeiGray Vintage, the VP of MeiGray Authenticated, Rob, VP of the NBA program, Drew, the VP of Sales. Boys, thank you so much for the time. Happy anniversary. It's Tales from the Warehouse, Volume 50. And don't forget, July the 12th, circle the calendar, plans and details, plans being made, details forthcoming. We will see you at the MeiGray Expo, July 12th at the Raritan Valley Community College. Until next time, thank you, gentlemen. The warehouse is closed.